Yeah, Dean's already seen a Shen Pao, but here is the CEO of Shen Pao, Grant Shen, with that top 8 at the Toronto Regionals, Hartford finalist in a very memorable game that I won't soon forget. Top 4 San Diego and OCIC top 8 in 2023.
Doesn't get much better than that.
Ever since Grant joined the Masters division, I believe he started almost half of those events as a 6-0 player, and we were like, who in the world is this kid? He's no longer a kid. Maybe he is a kid, but he's still getting the job done. He is unbelievable at this game, and as one of the pilots of Shen Pao, you got to think that he's definitely got an opportunity to make it to the finals.
And sitting across from him is another player that has worked his way up through 2 days of competition here into top 4. Daytona Regional top 8 for Dean Nezam, Dallas Regional Championship way back in 2018, and Philadelphia top 8 in 2018, and World top 4, not too shabby. And this is a player that you're very familiar with, Kyle, so I'm not surprised that his accomplishments go back that far.
That's right. Yeah, he's a groomsman of mine. I'm back in my wedding way back when, but he's an unbelievable player, great friend too, and he's just been around the community for such a long time. It's great to see him.
Showing the Comfey and the Roaring Moon EX.
Oh, that doesn't even begin to explain what you're about to witness. We just had to put 2 cards up there. Yeah,
there's so many different options for this list. One of the original claims to fame for the Lost Zone archetype wasn't just Cramorant and Sableye, it was the fact that Mirage Gate enables you to use so many different attackers for any matchup. And we're seeing here that Dean has already locked up his World's Invite this weekend.
Yeah.
Very, very stellar.
Both of these players will be joining us in Honolulu, regardless of if they become the champion today. Grant Shen, 9th on the leaderboard, is going to be moving even further. I had a conversation with John Eng. He got top 16 at the event. He might be going down on the leaderboard. That's how many great players there were in our top seeds here.
And I remember where the community was very unsure how things would pan out as the World Championship qualification points requirement shifted. But it's time to get this game underway with Prime Catcher in the prize cards. Dean is going to lose a lot of the aggression that his deck is built around.
Yeah, really unfortunate to see that there. It's at the top 2, so maybe assuming Heavy Ball could shuffle that around. A Colress Experiment as well, and some of those really valuable switch cards on the other side. For Grant Shen, does play the 3 copies of Shen Pao, so maybe not as bad there. And 2 of the 3 Pokestops, so maybe a little slower of an approach. We'll see how this works for our players.
Sometimes Shen Pao gets off to a slow start and is very reliant on the Pokestop, maybe trying to combine it with Cypher Maniac's code breaking to find those key pieces. But if Grant Shen gets off to a great initial opening, won't be missing the Pokestops too much.
All right, you know what? Maybe we just shouldn't say anything, because that's not a great opening. That's an Iron Hands.
Iron Hands in the active. We did see this earlier on in the stream, Kyle. It seems like a huge stumbling block to have this 4 retreat cost Pokemon stranded in the active, and you think you might have a window of opportunity to set up behind this Pokemon's bulk. But with Dean Nezam's aggressive style, I don't know if Grant Shen's going to have enough time to get this safely out of the active spot and start using Shen Pao's Shivery Chill.
Right, that's the big issue. Not finding the energies from Shivery Chill. It thins out the deck. It finds those resources. Those get to the discard pile, and then of course you bring them right back. But with this Pokemon now stuck in the active spot, you're really left with the Prime Catcher as your only utility card to put the Shen Pao in the active. And yeah, this is a great attacker, but it might take a little bit of time to find all the energies for this Pokemon now.
And after this opening, Buddy Puff and Grant Shen taking full stock of the deck, just like any good CEO would, checking the stocks. But getting 2 Frigibax in play is nice. Going to opt for 1 Frigibax and a Bidoof, very nice. Has a Frigibax in hand. Looks like a great setup to me, Kyle, but the next order of business is getting this Iron Hands out of the way.
Right, and there's not much you can do about that, honestly. You play your hand out and you try to get as many of these Pokemon down into play so that you can draw into a ton of resources. And you see Grant acknowledging, you know what, it's probably going to take a B-roll to make this work, maybe even 2.
Over time, we've seen Shen Pao players tap into this line more and more, playing the long game, having this additional draw, the additional access to resources, because Hail Blade, Moonlight Shuriken, these attacks, all sending your water energy to the discard pile, means that you have to continuously find your superior energy retrievals, your super rods, to recover that fuel for your attacks to close out games. So many Chen Paos lose out on the final bit of resources they'll need to close out a winning position.
And we see the Frigibacks played down, and that is the lone Frigibacks. Dean usually salivates in these moments, thinking about that prime catcher as an opportunity to easily work in Cramorant for a knockout. Not this time, as he sees the opening deck search.
With Nest Ball, Cramorant's already being eyed down on the bottom of the deck, but is going to see immediately that prime catcher is missing. And when it comes to Lost Zone play, the aggressive Cramorant lines are usually your first order of business. They're great on the table to take out some of these basic Pokemon before they can evolve. And if you don't have access to that, maybe Dean is happy to kick back and play that longer style of game that Lost Zone has slowly but surely become much more known for. Does that mesh with what we've been touting as a more aggressive build, though?
Right. Dean has opportunities. So you can either pick up the pace and continue to draw through. We'll see what cards he finds off of resources like that Concealed cards, the Colress experiment that he has 2 of in hand already. If those start to turn into Buddy Buddy Puff and switching effects, maybe even some Forest Sealstone action, then you could see a huge opening turn, maybe even that Moonlight Shuriken that Grant was clearly thinking about as he made sure to have a couple of abilities lined up there.
By having 2 Bidoof, values that Bibarel immensely for card draw, and as you pointed it out, Kyle, with the Radiant Greninja entering play, access to Chorus Experiments, it's too soon to tell where Dean is actually going to go on this turn.
Certainly, you have to expect that this is a turn where Cramorant could provide some versatility, at least get some chip damage into the Iron Hands. It lines up well for follow-up, maybe with a Sableye, but I don't see any of the switching cards that you're looking for here.
Yeah, pretty difficult choice being offered up here. Because Chorus's Experiment lets you look at the top 5 cards of the deck, 2 of them must be sent to the Lost Zone, and Dean opts for Comfey and the Hisuian Heavy Ball. After seeing the deck with Nest Ball, knows that there's no Pokemon in there, but some players like to simply waste the Hisuian Heavy Ball just to thin it while also shuffling around those prize cards. So Prime Catcher is going to remain up at the top for the most of the game.
Yeah, that's a little unfortunate, but of course it is correct for Dean. He doesn't need to go and see those cards. He's got a great idea of what's already in the prizes. At this point, it's very important to continue to fill up your board with these Comfeys, have the ability to switch between them, use multiple flower selections in a turn, and get to that 7 for the Mirage Gate as soon as possible.
It does have the 1 copy of Rescue Board, which is great for fueling this along the way. Has a second Chorus's Experiment in hand, as you pointed out, Kyle. So the march towards Mirage Gate has already been mapped out, especially with 3 Comfey now entering play.
Yeah, plenty of opportunities here to see cards. We still have not seen the Concealed cards. You'll see 2 cards each from the Flower Selecting. So 6 more cards to find 1 more switching effect would line up with a Cramorant attacking this turn into the Iron Hands. And of course, we know about the wackiness that you can find. If you chain together all those switching effects, there is a world where Moonlight Shuriken happens.
Moonlight Shuriken, if the Iron Hands has been chipped down enough, can take even more prizes. 2 Cramorant hits. Is this, am I maybe going too deep into the weeds? Hit it twice with Cramorant, clean it up with Sableye down the road, try to get 3-4 prize turns.
I mean, it's happened sometimes. The damage doesn't go anywhere at this point, and this was the big turn. I guess this selection really shows where Dean's thinking. Sableye is a very valued resource for cleaning up later on. The water energy would be great for Moonlight Shuriken, but at this point, let's just play it safe. We got 4 into the Lost Zone, and if we can find this Cramorant, we'll be okay. I don't even know if that's an option this turn, though, unless Concealed cards can bring us a basic Pokemon.
And as Dean gets deeper and deeper into the deck, sees what resources are needed, what's getting sent to the Lost Zone, can now make a confident decision to hold on to the Psychic Energy, discard the Darkness Energy.
Nest Ball found. I saw a blue Pokemon, but it was Manaphy. Doesn't matter. Cramorant is there if you want it, but is there a way to move?
The Retreat has already been used for turn with the Rescue Board attached to this Comfey.
Safety first. Manaphy to protect the board from that Radiant Greninja.
an omnipresent threat when you're up against Chen Pao. Moonlight Shuriken shutting you out of the game entirely, and ironically something that Dean would also like to do to Grant.
It's just a great card. It's, there's 4 different basic energy types in this list, but it's important to make sure that you have the opportunity with 3 water energies to potentially cash in on such a valuable attack.
Just going to be another pass. Dean didn't do anything too flashy, but still a great foundation and is confident he'll have some additional time to look through the deck, put cards in the Lost Zone, thanks to, once again, Iron Hands EX being stuck in the active spot. Ultra Ball discards 2 water energies, so Grant Shen can search the deck for Bibarel to evolve and gain access to Industrious Incisors and draw back up to 5 cards once per turn.
This could be an absolute slugfest with his hand. Just depends on what the Bibarel is able to find off of this. Of course, we see the Superior Energy Retrieval, the Ultra Ball in hand as well. So if you aren't able to find the rare candy, then you can go for another Bibarel. You see the Code Breaker. Maybe that's the piece.
Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking. You search your deck for 2 cards of your choosing. Shuffle your deck and put those 2 chosen cards on top. Great to combo with a lot of these draw power abilities to essentially search 2 cards. It's a make your own Starbirth, Kyle. And from this point, I wonder if Iron Hands EX is just going to become the attacker. Find Lightning Energy, find the rare candy Baxcalibur, try to go from there.
Well, there's one issue with that. That's 3 cards, and we can only find 2.
Second Bibarel is picked up, however. Can he thin the hand down enough?
The Cypher Maniacs can bring rare candy Baxcalibur to the front, and at this point, really hoping to see Lightning Energy or one of those Earthen Vessels with the final 2 cards of the Bibarel.
2 cards to make this turn absolutely delicious. Otherwise, Grant Shen has to sit back and watch Dean take another rep of flower selectings and putting more cards in the Lost Zone, getting Cramorant down to start putting damage on the Iron Hands EX, and this window of opportunity will begin to close. Chen Pao, Prime Catcher?
I mean, those are pretty good. It doesn't lead to the 2 prize knockout you're looking for with the Iron Hands cashing in on that early opportunity. Maybe Dean isn't ready with the follow-up Hoopa in this spot, but surely you've got some pretty solid resources there. The issue now is you can use Shivery Chill and get the additional 2 energies, and you got to pick which Pokemon is valuable. It looks like with the rescue board, Comfey is not long for this world.
This definitely isn't half bad with Shivery Chill grabbing the 2 water energies right now to fuel Hail Blade. The Superior Energy Retrieval will remain in the hand, and Grant Shen can continue to threaten with Iron Hands EX now that he's safely moved that back onto the bench. Every time the Iron Hands is in the active spot, and I think it might be stuck there for a while, the Chen Pao players have the Prime Catcher, and Grant Shen takes the first prize of this game.
Yeah, and for Dean now, answering this Chen Pao can be a little tricky. There's certainly some options as you look through the list and see his opportunities. You have that Roaring Moon EX, where if you have maybe a Stadium in play, you could take the knockout there, removing that and dealing the 220 necessary. Raikou V is also a Pokemon that you try to work into the mix, but Grant was thinking about that. You see only 4 Pokemon on his bench. Tried to avoid giving the clean numbers for a 1-hit knockout.
There are no metal attackers in Dean's list, of course, trying to hit the Chen Pao for weakness, and it becomes very awkward. The bench space being taken up by Manphy to protect the rest of this from a potential Moonlight Shuriken play. Grant Shen, with this empty bench space, is threatening so many different possibilities against Dean Nezam's board.
All right, what opportunities does Dean have now? 5 cards in the Lost Zone. Culver's Experiment is in hand. Wants to see the answer a little earlier, maybe off of the flower selecting. He's already seen the Roaring Moon, but maybe a Stadium would feel even better.
Decides to send Iron Hands to the Lost Zone. It is a pretty tall order to get that powered up. You're having to chase down Bibarels and Baxcaliburs to even get maximum value of Ampy very much. Dean seems to be settling into just take 2 prizes off the Chen Pao. Whenever Grant Shen promotes something, just knock it out. try to run this Chen Pao out of resources. Every time they attack, they have to spend a lot of time searching cards and attaching to do so, while Dean has a little bit more burst potential thanks to Mirage Gate, can accelerate a Pokemon into play immediately. And I'm thinking, Kyle, that with Super Rod putting the Dark Energy back in is maybe trying to line up some sort of Calamity Storm with the Roaring Moon EX to take down this Chen Pao EX. Needs an Artisan as well. It might be too much to ask.
Yeah, the ordering's a little curious, unless that Comfey is just the complete piece that you need in order to get the job done here. Because you still have not used the Colress Experiment, which leads to maybe drawing into those energies that you just shuffled back in, which you never want to do when you're about to reach that Mirage Gate turn.
Gotcha. And I'm glad that we certainly have an extended time clock for the top 4 match here, because you can see with Dean having access to so many different resources, so many opportunities, Lost Zone being a deck known for how many individual decisions you have to make per turn off of every flower selecting, etc. Which energy are you going to save for which attacker you need to prioritize for the matchup itself on a macro scale, but also the current moment in time, considering what's in play, certainly does eat up the clock.
Yeah, I mean, we're at 6 cards in the Lost Zone. The Sableye and the Psychic Energy are lined up there, but Dean is continuing to dig through. Now has the 7th card, but would not like to see any energies in this spot.
And Dean is being very reluctant to cast the Colress's Experiment, and I think that might be he's digging and searching, finds a boss's orders as well, is putting together an attack and wants to boss something instead.
He's able to throw away a switch in this spot. With the boss's orders already in hand, of course, when you see a Pokemon like that Baxcalibur, that lone Baxcalibur, no Frigibacks in play, you'd love to remove it from play if possible. But do the cards line up here now?
Yeah, do you have an attacker? Cramorant's not going to do it.
No.
You need to put a 2-prizer up, but Dean bides his time, doesn't have an attack through here, and fortunately in a matchup like this where you can buy some time with single prizers, maybe this doesn't put him too far behind, Kyle. I'm not sure I like it, though. This is always dangerous to let Chen Pao get these extra reps of leaving this Pokemon in the active spot, to use Shivery Chill, to boss up potential things from your back, from your bench. Radiant Greninja goes down, maybe Manaphy goes down, and suddenly the threat of Moonlight Shuriken against your Comfeys goes down. Dean has to take a turn off to Super Rod the Manaphy back rather than continuing his plan of setting up attackers and actually getting into the game.
All right, and for Grant, it's as simple as find Earthen Vessel, find Lightning Energy, and I'm going to start taking 2 prize cards a turn. If you're going to play this slow approach, we're completely fine here going up 3 prize cards.
And another Frigibax bench for good measure. And some Super Cold to round it out. No more energy left in the deck. Superior Energy Retrieval is in the hand. And 2 Bibarels ready to go. Double Industrious Incisors means you can draw up to 5 cards, Kyle. Use your Superior Energy Retrievals, your Ultra Balls, whatever you happen to find to thin the hand back down and then draw up once again. Grant Shen is widening, creating an immense gulf in this game right now. Not just in terms of prize cards, but just in terms of foundational setup and resources.
Yeah, at this point for Dean, you're trying to find any weaknesses, and typically that answer is use a Roxanne, remove a Bibarel, remove Baxcalibur, whatever it may be. That includes only 1 Bibarel in play. That includes Prime Catcher on Baxcalibur. You have to have a multitude of pieces working for you, and it's just not here on this opening game.
Whenever we see these very complex Mirage Gate-focused multi-attacker Lost Box decks, they have so many different individual cards that are so important and can really stumble when they end up in the prize cards, or based on a hard decision, end up in the Lost Zone instead. So Dean really struggling because of the loss of Prime Catcher, really foiling his aggressive ideas, and Grant Shen has all the time in the world finally to bring Iron Hands EX back into the active. What once was stranded now arrives triumphant to amp you very much and take 2 prizes.
And so wise of Grant as well to include this water energy on the Chen Pao. In a world where potentially this Excalibur is removed from play, you now have the opportunity to attack with the Iron Hands or attack with the Chen Pao. Just a single energy gets the job done.
Dean now on the back foot, and that is certainly an understatement. Comfey comes into the active. There is one flower selecting to be had after the Cold Roses experiment, sends a Cramorant and a Darkness Energy to the Lost Zone. As the further time goes on, Dean is forced now to use very specific attackers to deal with the HP counts on Iron Hands EX, 230 HP, Chen Pao EX, 220 HP, and after falling behind 3 prize cards, having to put a 2-prizer in the active spot to respond is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, at this point, what's your response? You have Hoopa that could be promoted, take the knockout here, and at that point, Grant Shen, all he has to do is have another Chen Pao down, place multiple energies on the board, and he's got a checkmate set up where there's only 1 prize remaining. It leaves Dean in a situation where he has to prime catcher stall and use Sableye. It's an ugly spot to be in, and it seems like this got out of hand so quickly with that missed opportunity in turn 2.
And when you play a deck like this and you know it's complicated, Lost Zone as an archetype is known for its ability to come back and really thrive in the later stages of the game thanks to Sableye. But I'm wondering if Dean should call it, try to get to game 2, play a long game 2 and have time for a long game 3. Hoopa EX now being benched with 1 attached for turn. Still going to finally pull the trigger on this aggressive line you talked about, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, it's here for this reason. Of course, if you can take the knockout on this Pokemon, you need to have a clean return answer to Iron Hands. It's one of the main reasons why we were so worried about this card when we first saw it come into play. It takes knockouts left and right against these lower hit point Pokemon like the Comfey, like the Manaphy. So have this answer lined up, but Grant's easily going to find a solution. He's got a multitude of cards in hand, so there has to be some disruption to go along with this.
Comfey retreats. Hoopa EX comes into the active spot, uses Energy Crush to knock out the Iron Hands EX, and Dean Nezam takes 2 prizes, trying to even up the race here, but Grant Shen has Chen Pao EX with 1 energy already attached to it, prepped and ready to go. Pokestop now draws 3 cards. There was never any doubt. Canceling Cologne, Suing Heavy Ball, Super Rod now in the hand. Double Superior Energy Retrieval I'm also seeing, Kyle. The world is his oyster. 1 Heavy Ball just to get it out of the hand and look at the prizes. I don't think there was anything in there.
Yeah, just a bunch of Pokestops and a rare candy at this point. You're not too concerned about those. You just need to continue to thin down the deck so that Bibarel is able to find every resource you'd need to close out in a situation like this. We see Super Rod, we see Ultra Ball. Everything is there to set up 2 Chen Pao that cannot be stopped.
When you have the KO lined up, you don't want to just start taking prizes willy-nilly. Do your due diligence as a player. Thin down the hand. Grant Shen is very aware of Dean running Roxanne at this point, I would imagine. Doesn't want the Heavy Ball to go back into the deck, and there's plenty of other cards he can potentially thin down as well.
Yeah, this is so wise, too, when you're using all those superior energy retrievals as your way to return energies. Use Super Rod as well. You can bring those 2 water energies back into play. Huzzah, there they are. They're ready to come right back. As you see, the Shivery Chill can be activated whenever. Bring those energies right back into play by way of the Excalibur, and you'll have the knockout lined up for the Hoopa pretty quickly.
And that's so nice when the Shivery Chill does most of the heavy lifting to get the water energy back rather than relying on superior energy retrieval. Discarding 2 cards from the hand can be pretty cumbersome sometimes when the rest of your hand is just way too good. But reconsidering the attachment here.
Yeah, it's maybe just considering if those energies should potentially be any of the fodder used, if the hand has to be thinned down, if a superior energy retrieval has to be used. But ultimately, energies are a valuable resource in this spot. Getting them onto the board basically locks up that you'll have the 2 attacks to close out this game.
And this is another line we see from Chen Pao. You get the first Chen Pao into the active spot, you Shivery Chill, maybe retreat 2 energy off of it to use another Shivery Chill. I'm not sure there's any energy left in the deck at this point. Just going to go for superior energy retrieval. almost all the water energies are here and ready to go.
They are. Yeah, that's we see 3 on the active.
Oh,
one,
there it is. That was
5
like, where's
in
the
hand.
8th? Where's the 8th? It is in the hand.
They are ready to
Oh,
go.
I love this.
Yeah, this
Just
is
the
so
over-attachment
dangerous.
of energy.
And what are the resources left over? Well, now you see the buddy poffins, which you wish you could just get rid of. But if they get shuffled in by way of Roxanne, still 2 Bibarel ready to go and shuffle or continue to draw and maybe find either that Irida, that superior energy retrieval, whatever it will be to get you over the hump.
Mm-hmm. And don't think, folks, that Bibarel is going to be the be-all, end-all answer versus Roxanne. If you draw back into these buddy poffins and they're just duds, missing out on an attack is doom for Chen Pao EX. Once you get your engine established, you need to be attacking and taking prize cards every turn. And Dean, at this point, just has to cross his fingers that Grant Shen is going to miss a step. And after seeing sequencing of this caliber, I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah, he's got me smiling ear to ear over here. That additional energy held is so smart. You can find it with Shivery Chill.
And you can see the confidence on his face.
You'll have the 4th energy to deal with any amount of hit points your opponent can put in the active spot. 240 breaks through everything that you could potentially see from Dean's side. So it's all lined up there. 1 prize remaining. Dean is trying to find a way, but at this point, it's Roxanne and Prey.
Mm-hmm. And I think a big factor, certainly, in Dean's inability to threaten in the early game and maybe find some counterplay in this position is lack of the prime catcher.
Yeah, it's pivotal to the opening segment where you could target down that Frigibax, take the knockout, and completely slow down Grant's opening setup. These situations where you could have targeted down when there was just that single Baxcalibur, no Frigibax in play, you could really put your opponent in a terrible spot. Instead, now it is Sableye, it is Boss Stall, and you can try in these spots, remove that other Bibarel from play, but we see piles and piles of energies ready to roll. We're moving on to game 2.
Beautifully done, Grant Shen, with just 1 prize card remaining. For most decks, this could be an awkward position and be forced to take an additional prize, but Grant used his resource management beautifully there, and it was all set up way ahead of time that he would be able to get that final attack almost no matter what.
Yep, it lined up so well, and for Dean, it's going to be that just looking at the opening prize card, seeing no pink, no prime catcher. It really hurts, but that's when you're thankful that this is a best 2 out of 3. We've got an opportunity here. I think we saw perfectly 25 minutes off of the clock there, so plenty of time for these players to see game 2, maybe even a game 3, and you didn't really show much that game if you're Dean. You took 1 knockout, removed it from play, and Grant just played good Pokemon.
When we contrast both players, Grant Shen got the perfect setup, had not just a threat in the active spot, but additional threats on the bench, prepped with energy, ready to go. Dean, meanwhile, was trying to put together attacks with the Mirage Gate, but simply only found Hoopa EX to respond to Iron Hands, which is great. That's what you want it to do, but without the additional threat potential, somebody to take over once Hoopa EX clocks out is certainly the big issue. And even without the lack of threat there, he did fill up the Lost Zone quite diligently.
Yeah, I mean, cards were flying. Do you even remember turn 2 if there was a Colress played? I feel like we went for the boss strategy, and then when it wasn't there, he just stopped playing. But there were a lot of cards flying around left and right. I feel like he didn't even play a Colress experiment, but
I think he had it and slowly started to circle in on that boss's orders idea.
Yeah, it just the cards just didn't really line up there. Wanted to go for one strategy, but you run out of options when you don't have that prime catcher, when you can capitalize on that early advantage. And when you see Grant Shen go up 3 prize cards with a setup like that, you know it's over.
When you miss that window of opportunity, certainly as a Lost Zone player, the comeback potential isn't quite there because Sableye doesn't hit the high HP. You can take 1 Bibarel, but you can't take out a Baxcalibur with just 1 rep of Lost Mine. Shen Pao and Iron Hands both dodged Cramorant beautifully. That chip damage is also very important for your ability to threaten with single prizers later in the game. Looks like a mulligan here, though.
Yep, and it's going to be a welcome sight to Dean, who is starting one of his least favorite starters.
I actually didn't get eyes on it there, Kyle. Do you want to let me in, or do you want to save it for the big reveal for our audience at home?
We can save it. It's we've seen it before. How about that? Is that enough insight for you?
Oh no. But Grant Shen still looking very confident. Doesn't mind taking a mulligan there. Giving Dean one extra card. What harm could it hurt?
Yeah, this is a free game.
Another mulligan. Maybe I spoke too soon. Well, I'm bringing out some of the Caster Curse juju here to keep Dean in this best of 3.
Well, that's just it for Grant, and just get it all out of the way in the useless game 2 here now. Who cares if this doesn't work out? You just go first in game 3, and we'll be fine.
Well, it's great to have that buffer. As a competitive player at this stage, you played a beautiful game 1, and it's not just, oh, I won because my opponent got unlucky. He played out of his mind that game. We can't emphasize this enough, folks. So you've just built a great buffer for yourself heading into the second game. Plenty of time left on the clock. Give your opponent a couple extra cards in their starting hand. You know they're going to see plenty of cards anyway thanks to flower selecting, so it doesn't make a huge difference. Silene in the prizes for Grant. And over on Dean's side, no access to Hoopa EX just yet, but I'm not seeing any hot pink, so he's got the Prime Catcher in there somewhere.
That's right. One of the 2 Excalibur prize. That Silene prize could be unfortunate, and the Hoopa, as always, that answer to Iron Hands. Speaking of Iron Hands.
A big, bulky boy stuck in the active spot. Dean immediately opens up with a Sui and Heavy Ball. Going to check the prize cards out right now.
Ooh, Hoopa or Comfey. Tough. I don't like when Iron Hands goes unchecked, but I do like setting up.
The Iron Hands, it's so hard to call when it's going to arrive on the scene, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
Opts for Comfey and says, I think I can take a couple knockouts on a Chen Pao or something.
Yeah, we'll find the Hisuian Heavy Ball or the Hoopa. We've got 2 out of 6 prize cards that could help us out in this spot.
Seems like good odds to me. And with Buddy Buddy Poffin, 2 Comfey, switch cards.
My gosh.
Seems to be this engine might leave the station.
Grant, calm down.
He's been playing a long weekend of Pokemon, has to sit and wait for a pretty long turn to resolve before his Chen Pao gets to start working.
Well, it's going to be confused at this point. Buddy Buddy Poffin, what do you find here? All the Comfeys are in hand. They're ready to roll. And this is the difference when you start this Iron Hands as opposed to Grant Shen starting the Iron Hands. You've got a ton of switching effects. We could see 3 cards in the Lost Zone potentially on this opener, and that is great news if you're Dean.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Dean should have just taken the Hoopa EX because of this Buddy Buddy thing, but perhaps just wants all 4 Comfey. We'll go Buddy Buddy here to get these 2 out of the deck. Maybe the second Buddy Buddy gets nothing, just whiff it, and play down 4 Comfey, use all of the, I think we saw at least 2 switch cards in the hand, start filling up the Lost Zone, very high odds of finding the rescue board, and keeping this chain going.
Yeah, this hand has a lot going on. Let's start to flower select.
You look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose 1 to go to the hand, the other one goes to the Lost Zone. Not going to be able to use this lightning energy for the rest of the game.
Well, water energy is definitely the one that you're looking for. That is the one in combination with the Radiant Greninja that's going to line up for some great plays. Already see the Mirage Gates there ready to roll. There's a 3rd Mirage Gate. There's a problem now. What supporter are we playing next turn? We have 1 Chorus. Okay, that's good too. All right, now we just need to find Radiant Greninja, and this could be quite a turn.
Attach for turn and into a retreat. Comfey number 3. 3rd flower selecting now. Everything that Dean needs besides Radiant Greninja is pretty much already in the hand.
Yeah, didn't see the other card, but one was a Super Rod, I believe.
Raikou V.
A Switch. He's got so many old arts in there. This is a great hand.
The utility is there. The ability to get your Pokemon into the active spot to use the flower selectings is so pivotal. No attackers as of yet, but with Coral's Experiment and way more flower selectings on the horizon, Dean Nezam is going to be threatening an attack imminently.
Ever so sneaky, setting up those cards in the Lost Zone, potentially to line up some big knockouts, and it is on Grant Shen to establish a bench that maybe can withstand the second turn.
It's always a nice boon to start with Chen Pao in the active, certainly. Shivery Chill grabs 2 water energy, and he's already taking notes, seeing what's in the deck.
So don't have that Silene to work with. A couple other pieces. That one Baxcalibur also prized. Definitely have to consider that, as we've seen that Pokemon removed from play very quickly with the opposing player's prime catcher.
And a lot of players have, their first order of business being to boss up and knock out a Baxcalibur, regardless of whether there's another Baxcalibur, forcing your opponent to jump through some hoops and find that rare candy. And Dean, just by taking a natural play such as that, will be dealing devastating damage to Grant Shen unless he can find that second Baxcalibur out of the prize cards. Irida picks up Radiant Greninja and a Buddy Buddy Poffin, so the gang's going to be all here shortly, Kyle.
Yeah, and we saw there's also the Pokestop in hand, so opportunities to see even more item cards that could potentially help out here. We see the shuffle first, so maybe drawing with the Radiant Greninja to see if you can find some additional help, maybe another Pokemon here or another Buddy Buddy Poffin, Nest Ball, whatever it may be, something to help fill out this bench so that maybe a Moonlight Shuriken doesn't destroy us.
The Moonlight Shuriken has pressure on both players in this matchup, and it's so bizarre. Dean does not have the mana fee yet, and now after seeing Radiant Greninja interplay, might be considering already going to get it.
Finds the Nest Ball off there, so rewarded with an additional Pokemon now. And here's the big turn once more. Are you ever scared enough to triple backs?
I don't like it, Kyle. Grant Shen has shown to be pretty confident, knowing that there's only one Baxcalibur. Maybe you're going to play it a little bit loosey-goosey, but I think, yeah, just the one Bidoof, one Frigid Backs, use the Nest Ball, find a second Chen Pao? Second Bidoof?
Don't be so sure. There's Nest Ball, there's Ultra Ball. He's got considerations. This could be the ugliest board state to start a game, but here it is.
And especially after seeing Raikou V enter the Lost Zone, wants to fill up the bench after all.
Wow, this is the situation that you can find yourself in these spots, because Grant is going to fully commit to understanding Moonlight Shuriken would ruin this game for me, but my board is now atrocious. If you knock out this Chen Pao, I'm working with just a bunch of goofballs trying to take prize cards.
Moonlight Shuriken knocks out 2 Frigibacks, and you're maybe playing your macro under the assumption you're going to have one Baxcalibur anyway. And there's the pass for turn. It's back over to Dean. Moonlight Shuriken wants to come through this turn. Is it possible? We'll see after records this experiment.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if you even want to go down that route just yet, because these Frigibacks should be lined up for you down the road. If you can cash in on maybe that knockout on the Chen Pao this turn, you put that pressure on your opponent, but you always know that eventually you could incorporate the Radiant Greninja as a 2-prize knockout, have a single prizer in the middle, in the position, taking those knockouts, and leave your opponent in an awkward spot.
First flower selecting as well. If Dean wants to follow that line, take down Chen Pao EX, is it just going to be double Mirage Gate? What do we attack with, Kyle?
Just depends on which Pokemon you find.
Hey, has to find Roaring Moon.
Yep.
With Hoopa now in the prize card still.
Yeah, I mean, well, Hoopa's not doing much anyways, but yeah, it's certainly better than that 4th Comfey at this stage. Sableye no longer going to be a potential card to use in this spot.
Yeah, there is only one Sableye in the deck, just kind of there for certain late game E scenarios, but this just shows that Dean is very much committed to a 2-2-2 prize map if possible.
Well, there is a prime catcher. Iron Hands, of course, is an attacker that could be incorporated. Maybe you target down a Pokemon like that Bidoof. It's not
certainly
a big threat right
out
now, but the fact that your opponent has already played themselves into an awkward spot, maybe removing that Pokemon could be the key to them not finding those valuable resources.
Radiant Greninja is on the bench. There is one more slot available, but after a concealed cards, Dean is hoping to evaluate every single possibility before committing to a line.
Nestball opens up some avenues now. Of course, with no stadium in play, taking the knockout onto this Chien-Pao leads to a bunch of damage on a Roaring Moon. It's not ideal. Radiant Greninja lines up so cleanly into taking a couple knockouts on these Pokemon here, but then you open up bench spaces for your opponent, and they can play down multiple Bidoof, and they can continue to just build on an impressive board state. You almost want to punish your opponent for going for this triple Frigibacks.
We've seen the Sableye be a bench lock punish in a lot of states, but Dean has sent it to the loft zone, wants to go directly at these attackers rather than trying to dance around with potential for Super Cold attaching to Baxcalibur and dealing with Buster Tail because Cramorant doesn't strike back effectively. That's also in the lost zone, by the way. It's EXs or bust for this man.
That's right. Well, Dean is ready to take the knockout onto those Frigibacks. It's not a bad thing by any means. It feels like you could save those prizes for a different spot, but the fact that you have the prime catcher after this as follow-up, it puts pressure on your opponent to have Super Rod and a way to search out Frigibacks right now. If they don't rebench one of these Friggies, you can target down one of the remaining 3 at this spot and easily remove that from play. 3 prize cards, and your opponent has no energy acceleration.
Both lines to consider. Dean has powered up Radiant Greninja, is going to be hunting down those basic Pokemon, taking 2 prizes, trying to jump out ahead in this game. Grant Shen, meanwhile, as we've said, folks, has 1 Baxcalibur. The other one is in the prizes, so it's going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting, getting potential for multiple attackers established like we saw in Game 1. But that always remains a tall order because I actually wasn't looking, Kyle. Does he have the means to get Bibarel in the hand?
It's already in hand.
Okay,
that
perfect.
makes it easy.
Okay, okay. Then he does have some resiliency against this play, has the means to draw and get out of dodge. And I suppose it was a switch cart then to bring the Greninja up.
Yeah, it takes the knockout and removes those 2 Friggies from play, and now Grant needs to have a pretty phenomenal turn, not only to find a relevant attacker. Of course, you got that Chien-Pao there ready to roll, but it's going to have to be the code breaking into some pretty solid cards to find that final Baxcalibur with the other one in the prizes, and also try to return one of these Frigibacks to the board.
Even if you only have access to 1 Baxcalibur, exactly. If that gets knocked out, put it back in the deck with Super Rod, try to re-evolve it. Cypher Maniacs Code Breaking is the opener to combo with Radiant Greninja. Or Bibarel, rather.
This really is a delicate dance at this point. You, of course, could use Shivery Chill, find some additional resources. But if you want to draw with the Bibarel first, then you want to thin your hand down. You want to use that Ultra Ball and get the Baxcalibur. So then you have to use Radiant Greninja to draw first. It's just trying to make sure that all of the resources line up here.
It's sequencing, Kyle. Which line lets me thin down my hand most consistently, depending on what is drawn, so that the Bibarel gets maximum effectiveness alongside the Chien-Pao EX's Shivery Chill.
It ends up staying on the Earthen Vessel. Knowing where that lightning energy, of course, is very valuable. Looks like it's unchecked right now when you see this board state. And that's got to be a friendly sight. And we know that the Hoopa wasn't available there.
Concealed cards now. Water Energy goes to the discard pile, and Grant Shen, oh, would you look at that? Gets Earthen Vessel and Rare Candy. Has the Ultra Ball in hand to grab the Baxcalibur. Discards Pokestop with the Earthen Vessel first to search out. There's also access to Shivery Chill. This will perhaps be something to end cap the turn after drawing with Bibarel.
Yeah, Grant really wants to line this up so that only Superior Energy Retrieval is in hand when you draw with the Bibarel, and you already will have the Baxcalibur in play.
It's very meticulous. It's we can't overstate how every individual sequence of playing cards in certain order can change whether you see one extra card off of your Industrious Incisors or not. And from a point like this, Kyle, where there's just one Frigibax in play, there's just one Bidoof in play, you know you can't rely on these Pokemon in the long term.
Yep. Now eyeing down, there is that final Baxcalibur. You have the rare candy, you have the water energies ready to go. 4 cards available with the barrel, and you've got the knockout most likely on the Radiant Greninja. That's going to be fine. But at this point, if I need Super Rod and replaying down that Frigibax, or just having enough energies in play to at least continue to have threats while you have this board that's pretty volatile, that's what you got to figure out here. And 4 cards to help. Super Rod is found, but can you search from here?
I think everything that could be done has been done. Superior Energy Retrieval and Irida going to be set up for next turn. But you do need at least 3 energy to knock out the Radiant Greninja to keep Dean from going for a Super Rod, Mirage Gate play, using another Moonlight Shuriken potentially to soften up more of your back line, if that's even worth it.
Yep, and this is a list that features canceling Cologne, so I wouldn't be surprised if we had seen some energies onto the Radiant Greninja, but at this point says, I really hope this Chien-Pao goes unchecked. I'm throwing my energies here. Sure, you could remove the Baxcalibur, but I will be able to knock out whichever Pokemon you have lined up.
And once more, Dean is presented with the obstacle of Chien-Pao EX in the active spot, demanding very specific attackers in order to take it down. Hoopa EX still in the prize cards, to my reckoning, but has access to Roaring Moon at the very least, and Iron Hands EX kind of waiting on the bench. Doesn't hit for weakness, but still taxes this Chien-Pao a little bit more to take it down.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can take this approach at this point. You could be very aggressive. You could use Prime Catcher and maybe start to incorporate Iron Hands as a way to knock out something like that Barrel and go down to 2 prize cards remaining. Your opponent almost always is attacking with Chien-Pao in that spot, and if you have the Roaring Moon to close out, then we're ready to move on to Game 3. It just depends on if Dean wants to target resources or if he wants to just put all of his cards on the table and say, if you've got it, you got it, but I'm gonna provoke a lot of threats right now.
The Roaring Moon EX certainly presents a dual purpose for this list. The Calamity Storm threatening a decent chunk of damage if you have a stadium in play, or just the Frenzied Gouging to be a knockout that you can rely on to checkmate your opponent in the later stages of the game. Super Rod going to put 1 Psychic Energy back in the deck.
That is calculated. Only wants the 1 energy there. See what resources are remaining. It's going to have 0 energies left over.
So Roaring Moon is the option, powered up now by Mirage Gate. Can take out Chien-Pao.
Yeah, this works just as strongly. You can remove this Pokemon from play, have the Iron Hands as backup, hold on to that Prime Catcher. You have so many Comfeys that you can be switching in and out of, and you know your opponent doesn't have a way to disrupt your hand. All these resources will be sticking around. It's going to be up to Super Rod to give you those last few energies up for the Iron Hands or whichever Pokemon you close out with.
Nezam going for flower selecting now, seeing a bit more of the deck. Nest Ball goes to the Lost Zone, and I think it's a Super Rod coming to the hand. Great way to get these energies back in the deck, even if Grant Shen is able to respond and knock out this Roaring Moon EX. There's a retreat for turn into another Comfey. Has the switch already to bring the Roaring Moon into the active spot, so it's going to take this time to see even more cards from the deck. The more you thin, the greater your top decks are going to be. Gives up a Super Rod now, switch card now, a card in hand to allow him to switch into another Comfey, see more cards.
Where's the stadiums?
There's
like
2 copies of Artisan somewhere in here, Kyle.
And it's not going to be found. And at this point, it's already played a ton of resources to get to this point.
Is it really, after all that, a massive whiff? Do you have to just use Frenzied Gouging now to take out the Chien-Pao EX? Oh, no.
Well, knockouts are knockouts. At this point, you could go down to 2 prize cards, and you just need to make sure you have the resources to close out. I see Super Rod, I see Mirage Gate, I see Energy in hand.
Is it ever appropriate to Prime Catcher? And no, the Calamity Storm needs the stadium in hand to even be a threat.
Yeah, this is all about the prize race at this point. Dean wants to get out of this game in the next 2 turns, if you include this one.
So with a lack of stadium in play, Calamity Storm's attack cannot be boosted. Means that Frenzied Gouging must be the response to knock out Chen Pao EX. Roaring Moon now deals 200 damage to itself. Stuck in the active with 30 HP. Grant Shen can take the revenge KO with just a stiff breeze.
Well, we'll see. Maybe if this is a situation where an Iron Hands could come into play and start to manipulate this prize exchange, because 5 prizes never means 2 turns unless you have Iron Hands.
The Ampy very much taking 3 would be massive. And then the continuous threat of just more Chen Paos to come through, responding to the EXs that Dean must respond with against an Iron Hands EX. Certainly swings game number 2 way back into Grant Shen's favor. Can he put it all together?
Yeah, it's so risky to attack with that Pokemon. Of course, you're wary of the Hoopa. That's 1 Mirage Gate likely to take a knockout. So is there a single prize option that you feel comfortable with? The issue there is you haven't seen the Prime Catcher, and you can't disrupt the hand. Dean has seen so many cards. It's just 5 cards or so left in his deck at this point.
And if for some reason Grant Shen is not able to put together an attack, Dean would be very happy to get the Artisan out of the deck, incredibly likely from this point, and just start Calamity Storming, get as much value out of this 2 prize Pokemon as possible.
Yeah, this turn honestly could be Buster Tail. There's not much that you can do against that Pokemon. It's awkward. 160 hit points usually means that a V or EX Pokemon has to be worked into the mix to take the knockout. It's a single prizer.
And Grant Shen being forced to respond with Buster Tail seems great. You're putting those energies in play, putting a single prizer in the active, but Dean does have hand disruption in his deck. I don't believe Roxanne was sent to the Lost Zone this whole time, Kyle.
Yep, it's still holding on to that, so that is the eject button in case everything goes wrong. Pokestop played almost guarantees Roaring Moon will be knocked out this turn. The question now is how. There's risky strategies where Iron Hands takes the 3 prize cards. You can go the single prize route, but that means you're playing this game for at least 2 more turns after this. And do you even have that opportunity with Dean at 2 prize cards remaining?
It is a little ironic, isn't it, Kyle, that Grant Shen and Dean seem to be in a similar situation, despite Dean being ahead. The potential for your attacker to get knocked out and needing to scramble so hard to find something else to attack with, even when you're in a great position without the next link in the chain, the next step of taking prize cards, your tempo can evaporate just like that. Superior Energy Retrieval discards the Chen Pao to pull a bunch of water energy from the discard pile back to the hand. And it is indeed going to be a Buster Tail.
Yep. And this ball can search and at least see that the resources are there. You see the Iron Hands, which might just be used for hit points at the end of the game, hoping that Prime Catcher is one of those last prize cards, as we saw in Game 1, but it's not going to be the fate that we have lined up. Mirage Gates are the big piece at this point for Dean. We could try to take a look. I think we've seen 2 so far, but if it is 3, then that means the resources won't be available for the Iron Hands. I know 1 is in hand. Comfey, it's up to you, pal.
Grant Shen diligently taking prizes, responds to the Roaring Moon after it had knocked out Chen Pao. Buster Tail only dealing 130 damage. Pretty respectable if Dean doesn't put another 2 prizer back into the active, can deal with most everything else in the list. Iron Hands EX is here and ready to go, but the number of Mirage Gates are very important to see if it can even attack next turn. I know that Super Rod, maybe getting Roaring Moon back, getting some Darkness Energies back could be the way to go. And are you going to go all in on just getting Roaring Moon set up once more? Especially thanks to Artisan being almost guaranteed this turn. It seems like a good line to me.
Amphi very much could close out in this spot. Dean wants to take one last look at the counts. Would really like to know what those last few cards are, and you just must be a little unsure at this point. Pokestop could flip over, see a Mirage Gate, Super Rod, double Mirage Gate, would have all the resources lined up for Amphi very much with that Prime Catcher for the win on any of these Pokemon on the bench. You could always use the Poke Gear, take a look. Dean is going to see now. Don't need that Culver's Experiment. Down to just 2 cards remaining.
Rescue board picked up, gives a retreat, can save some energy, which is nice. I believe there's already a switch in the hand, so it doesn't matter. But you can see that those last 2 cards are Artisan? Wait a minute.
What's going on here?
It's not relevant at this point, but I just find it particularly hilarious how the Roaring Moon was forced to go for Frenzied Gouging because of that.
I'm so curious about what these last cards are. Just use Poke Gear, take a look. You'll be able to find out what's going on.
So the Darkness Energy was attached from hand onto the Iron Hands. Indeed.
Yep. Double Artisan.
Double Artisan on the bottom of the deck. And so with 1 Mirage Gate, Super Rods, so it needs to be double Mirage Gate, right, to still pay for the energy cost on Amphi very much.
And that's not available. I think it's just the 1 Mirage Gate that's there. So at this point, you can kind of hedge your bets. You have that Psychic Energy that you can incorporate with the Sableye if you already have enough cards in the Lost Zone, which I'm assuming we're plenty full at this point.
It's all starting to run together, Kyle. Is this the game where Sableye went to the Lost Zone?
Maybe so. We'll see.
Okay. So might not have access to that play, but needs to put something in the active. Still needs to attack this turn. Is there a window of opportunity for Grant Shen to punish this? The fact that Iron Hands can't get powered up this turn, try to bring it into the active and knock it out with a Chen Pao?
Yeah, Dean trying to buy time, has the energy attachment onto the Iron Hands and is going to wait a turn now. We'll have the energy that he'll top deck and then use the Mirage Gate for the final 2. And here it is, past the turn. Big opportunity for Grant if he's able to remove the Iron Hands from play.
Rolling up his sleeves, he's ready to get down to business, Kyle. If it is possible, the CEO of Chen Pao will do the digging and find that line. Can see Dean's entire deck, essentially, in play in the discard pile. Only a few cards are unknown to Grant within the hand and the prizes.
We like pink cards. They're very good. And that lines up perfectly. Prime Catcher along with that Chen Pao guarantees that knockout onto the Iron Hands. There's plenty of energies to go along with this. And that doesn't even begin to talk about the resources that are in this hand before the barrel and throwing down with the Super Cold.
So it bench Chen Pao, Prime Catcher, bring the Excalibur into the active spot, manually retreat it to send those water energies to the discard pile. Is there a superior to bring those back? I think there is still one left.
Yeah, I think I see it as second to last card in the end. Iron Hands targeted down, Chen Pao to the active.
Dean coming up short on just 1 Mirage Gate. Couldn't take the Amphi very much. KO last turn to close out game number 2. And now with Grant Shen finding the Prime Catcher thanks to Irida, has Shivery Chill to take 2 water energies out of the deck and add to the hand. Opts for just 1. I think I miscounted, but that's okay. And in order to knock out Iron Hands, EX just needs 4 energy in play, and it's all ready to go.
You start thinking about every resource at this point. Potential to knock out a Chen Pao. It would have to be an inadvertent benching from Grant Shen to have that 5th Pokemon onto the bench for a Raikou V to take a knockout here if Dean were able to fill his bench back up. Don't expect that to happen. Hoopa won't be able to reach the threshold. Iron Hands, even if it's brought back in, requires those 4 energies. Mirage Gate and attachment only brings you 3.
Very stellar gameplay. Super Rod puts Chen Pao and 2 Water Energies back into the deck. Just prepping the next attacker. Needs to, even despite being put on this very odd prize trade, this very odd prize count, grant Shen with 1 prize card remaining once more, just like in game 1, establishing multiple attacks way ahead of time. Removed Dean's key attacker he was relying on to close out the game. And what is the final piece he can lean into to take down Chen Pao EX?
Yeah, he knows every resource that he has available at this point. Super Rod, he can look through the discard pile and try to find a Pokemon. He can use Roxanne and maybe by some miracle slow down Grant to not find the superior energy retrieval.
Is there one more Super Rod to put an attacker back into the deck?
Artisan to stare at some energies.
Now Dean is the one that's painted into a corner. This happens so often with these lists. At the 11th hour, if your opponent is able to get one final bit of disruption, one final advantage to throw you off of your game, the strategy you were setting up, really puts the final nail in the coffin. Technically does have to shuffle these 2 energy cards after the Artisan.
Yeah, in this spot, I'm seeing Super Rod, Iron Hands, draw back into it with Roxanne, play an energy on it, use that Prime Catcher onto a barrel, and hope that you don't see superior energy retrieval next turn. If you do leave that Pokemon stranded in the active spot by some miracle, then you can Mirage Gate onto it and try to take a knockout, but you're asking so much.
Because in order to use the Frenzied Gouging, the Calamity Storm requires another Mirage Gate.
Can he get the
But there's no way to
drawn?
Yeah, there's no way to get this out of the deck now, even with the Super Rod.
So this is the risk that you take now. You have the Roxanne that can draw, but you need to find the Roaring Moon and one of the Dark Energies, not the other one, so that you can draw into it with Mirage Gate. He's trying to math this out so that it works out. There is a world where you can draw into the right pieces and take the Chen Pao, but you have to get a little lucky to not see both Dark Energies.
And getting as many cards out of the hand as possible before the Roxanne. Needs to put just the right amount of cards actually right back into the deck
Right,
to
and then what?
maximize the chances of getting the Roaring Moon based on how many are left. There's 5 cards in the deck after the Super Rod.
How many cards do you want to see before this, though? Because you have Flower Selecting, which can help you see at least one more final piece.
But the energy in the deck.
This is so big. All right, energies have to remain in the deck at this point. Just one Dark Energy would be ideal if Dean were to see that off of 6 cards, along with the Roaring Moon. Mirage Gate would be able to get him the rest of the way. It's a great spot. It's a dangerous spot. But these are the lines.
Rescue board is attached to Comfey. Means that it can retreat for free.
Very big draws. One Dark.
And a Roaring Moon.
Sees one, but how many energies is that at this point? Does he have an additional one? He's looking for the Pokemon now. Prime Catcher, Mirage Gate.
Prime Catcher goes to the Lost Zone.
He's
Mirage
got the Roaring Moon. He's got the Mirage Gate. Are there 2 energies remaining out of these 3 cards? It's 2 Dark Energies.
No!
It doesn't work.
Oh. With Mirage Gate, you have to find 2 different kinds of energy. After the Roxanne drawing into the lightning and the water, the Mirage Gate was not enough to accelerate to Roaring Moon, and Grant Shen advances